Hello everybody, Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaman Living Life with Purity. And today I want to talk a little bit about why progressives or people on the left-hand side of the political persuasion these days are fighting so hard for recent immigrants who aren't even citizens and have such prominent histories of bad behavior in the countries that they came from. And why are they fighting so hard for these people to be able to maintain a supported and welfare state existence in this country at the the detriment of our local citizens and working class people in this country? Why is this going on? Well, I got to tell you, it's about one word, and that is power. And what they're looking to do is try to maintain seats in the U.S. Congress and the Senate. And this all comes about because of how population is measured in a certain area. So every congressional district is roughly 750,000 people. Doesn't matter if they're citizens or they're immigrants and undocumented, as they say, illegals. It doesn't matter. They all get counted according to the laws we have on the books right now. So what ends up happening is that you may be in a blue state like Minnesota or California or New York, and you represent a district that has 750,000 people, has been gerrymandered to fit your needs. And so you've got the 750,000 people, but maybe 300,000 of them or more aren't even legal citizens and can't even vote, but they still get counted in the census. Whether it's correctly or incorrectly, overestimated, underestimated, I don't know. This is something that AI may end up helping us out with in the future, but right now it's not being used for that. But so if you've got 750,000 people supposedly in your district, and 300,000 of them can't vote, so you got 450,000 are eligible to vote, but probably a full half of those are underage citizens, children in the home. So if we drop that down, you got about 225,000 people maybe eligible to vote in your entire district. And figure on at best, maybe 60 to 70% will show up to vote. So that brings you down to about 150,000 total available votes. And so what that means is somebody running for election in that particular district really only needs to come up with about 75 to 80,000 votes to win the seat in Congress. And this is a system that these folks on the left have tried to be protected by way of these actions that they have going on. Because, as people may not know, since the COVID lockdowns and the other brutal behaviors that were put upon businesses and individuals under the Biden administration, a lot of people have left these particular blue states, the citizens, and they've moved to other maybe red states or just other safer areas that they feel are not so overbearing upon their lives. And so they got out, and that dropped down the available voting population, but left a larger void in the actual citizen population. Not even citizen, but occupant, the people living there, being counted. So what they had to do is, as people were leaving the state and people weren't moving in as normal productive citizens, they had to up the quantity of illegals coming across and being harbored in these, what they call sanctuary states or sanctuary cities. And so this is the big play that these folks have going on, is if you have good legal citizens moving out, you have to replace them with other undocumented people that at least get counted to keep your numbers up so you don't lose your district. So this is the big game that the folks on the left have been playing. But this game really only works in liberal type communities and populations and voting districts. It doesn't work in a conservative district, because in a conservative district, people typically don't move out. They stay because they feel safe, secure, productive. And so what happens in a red state or a red district is that particular candidate is going to have 750,000 people. Let's say that half of them aren't eligible to vote because they're youth, or maybe they're undocumented as well within that area. So if we take half of those out, and so we're left with about 350,000, 375,000 people, a congressman in that area must win about 200 to 250,000 votes to be declared the winner of that particular election. So the workload and the demands upon being elected in a red district are far harder than they are in a liberal district, as the way the rules are set up now. Now, a conservative wouldn't have any opportunity to win in a liberal district because they're so baked already. So you have to basically give those districts over as far as the head count goes, and you have to concentrate on the more productive and stable areas. In some of these, sometimes between the liberal side and the conservative side, you'll get a mix, and they call those purple areas. So they don't know if they're red or they're blue. They become purple. So you have to go in there and win on, the best arguments about things in a lively debate. But many times in these areas, the parties on the left don't want to debate because they know that they'll have their ass handed to them pretty easily. So they stay out of debates in these areas, and they just throw bombs from outside. They'll throw in pejorative bombs, calling these people Nazis and racists and things like that. You know how the playbook goes. So it's really indicative as to what's been happening here the last 3 months. So if you take a look at how world history has gone in the last 90 days, and you realize that the same people that are out protesting now against ICE and the deportation of illegal occupants of this country right now, thieves, criminals, and otherwise just basically bad people, the effort to get these people out of here is being thwarted by the same people that just 90 days ago were calling for death to Israel and death to all conservatives, death to Trump, death to Hegseth, death to everybody, that they didn't agree with. And so why have they changed? Well, the money and the influence changed the direction on what they needed these people to bitch about. And so now you got these people concentrated up right now in Minneapolis. You see the attention up there. And you see that ICE agents are in there, and people have been asking Trump about issuing the Insurrection Act and going in with the military. He's playing it smart, I think, right now, saying, no, I don't see any reason just as of yet. He's trying to leave it for local police to step up and do something. But in Minneapolis, they've basically been told by the mayor, the government, the police, to not do anything. So one of the reasons that they're not doing anything is because there's only one, what we would say, distractive force in the argument right now in Minneapolis. You have the federal law enforcement team in the form of ICE is in there. And then you've got then the agitators in the street, the protesters who are getting violent and obstructing things, which led to one woman's death last week by her own bad behavior. This is one of those things where people have to learn. You play certain games, you're going to win certain prizes. So the argument isn't about whether she had a right to move her car in the way she determined was best for her versus the right of the agent to be in an established ground position nearby as they were trying to do a police enforcement on this woman. The agitators all want to say that she was completely in the right, held all the rights. Well, the officer held rights too, and he had a right to protect himself, especially given that he had a history of other agitators hurting him, harming him, and putting him in the hospital to receive almost 40 stitches in a previous incident. So this guy had been around the block, and he stood back in that line of fire again to try to protect you, me, and the other guy. He was also trying to protect the agitators because they could have been hit too, because as she took off, she was definitely excited. Her wife was telling her to go, 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 all like this. So this woman really didn't have her head on straight. She might have been a good woman outside of these events, but she got triggered and got pushed and got used by the crowd. And this is a terrible thing to have happen. They need to rethink their positions on these things and try to get, their poop in a group and try to be productive about things and not so destructive, because the destructive side is never going to come out on top. It just won't. That's the devil's work. That is not anything of God. That is not anything that's working to try to lift people up. It's putting other people in harm's way, and it's stealing from the rest of us. And that's not fair, and that needs to be stopped. So we've got these people up in Minneapolis right now are feeling pretty proud about themselves, and I understand that. You have your opinions about things, and you always think you're right. You never realize you could be wrong, because that brings things down. It's always the other guy. You have to ostracize the other guy. You have to vilify them. You have to dehumanize them. And that's their playbook. They don't have arguments. All they can do is come out with slurs and slanders and defamation. So when the argument and a debate gets down to that, you know that that person has lost the debate and they have no moral ground on which to stand anymore. It's all been thrown away. So what do we do about this, and how do we need to change tactics? Do we need to walk away from the argument and just let them collapse on their own, go bankrupt as they seem to be going, cut them off from federal funds when we can? I submit that we should probably activate the National Guard, as Tim Waltz has suggested up in Minneapolis. He wants to call the National Guard out in his state to protect him from the ICE agents. Well, he's the governor. Like I said, play certain games, win certain prizes. I would suggest we do, from the government standpoint, is to go in with not so much a skeleton crew of ICE agents and whatnot. I say put all of the effort into one community at a time. We know we've got over 100,000 Somali immigrants to the area. We know that Somalia has been and is one of the world's worst places to live. Mogadishu, it's become parts of Minneapolis. What they did was they brought their behaviors from Mogadishu to Minneapolis, and they were paid by the government and these agents and these people who set up these schemes to get them to come in to help go against and offset the number of people that they were losing to actual outward migration out of these states. So this is why you have encampments in huge numbers in a certain area. What happened to DEI and diversity? Why are they sending 100,000 of a certain ethnic group into a certain area? That's basically racism. So they don't want to fly that flag when it fits, but they want to scatter or concentrate these people in scattered areas around the country, like they did in Springfield, Ohio, with the Haitian groups. Why on earth are 20,000 Haitians being moved into a community of 80,000 people by the government? It's all about power. It's all about trying to take over voting blocks. It's all about this. This is what the whole game plan has been. And this is why the people on the left don't give a damn about the people on the ground and the people being hurt. They're just going to sit there and cheer from their ivory towers and say, go get him. That's the bad guy right there. Nazi, fascist, get him. While they go home to their Cabernets and Chablis, like Kamala Harris is now in her $8 million mini mansion on the West Coast. Funny that she'd buy a house right on the ocean after she was just saying just a year ago that the world was going to flood out because of global warming, that all of our oceans are going to rise up and all our beaches and oceanfront properties are going to be underwater. So why does she have one now? Obama has two, one in Hawaii and one in Martha's Vineyard, whatever, out there. They're liars, absolute liars. And this is what we have to basically start calling this spade, is what it is. Don't fall for the lies. Stay strong. This is why it was important for you to know who you are And I talked about in the beginning about pay attention to the meaning of words, because this is the one thing they want to do, is to change the definitions all across the board so that they can inflict their venom into society as they see fit. You know, this is wrong. This is very, very wrong. This is evil. So pay attention to when it's happening around you. Try to support the legitimacy of laws. Otherwise, the laws mean nothing, and we may as well just all sit around and circle jerk for the rest of our lives. So I'm not up for that. I hope you aren't either. We need to have a safe and sane world for our families to live in and for our children to grow up in a spirit of confidence and not this era of, we would say, concerned about every little thing that doesn't matter about anything, but it does for the moment because it fits their agenda. In the meantime, I love you, and I'll be back.